Good morning, everybody. Sorry for the delay. Seems like I was waiting for you in the wrong link. I don't know how that happened. Let me get my PowerPoint up and shared with you. I see. I was wondering why there was no one in the meeting. I'm like, what's happening? Okay. Okay, so this morning I'm going to be giving you the overview of the next unit, which is on spelling. And this unit is up on Moodle, so you can have a look at it there. Just having difficulty finding my slides. Just give me a minute. Okay, so I just want to check the meeting is being recorded. And I'm just going to go through the spelling unit for you. So please note that I have opened up a unit on the spelling, which is the next part in our in the units on Moodle, and it is about spelling. Okay. Okay, so to remind everybody that spelling, we're talking about spelling in the English language, and spelling is got to do with very, very complex rules that the English language follows. And the English language is a very old language, so it comes from Latin roots, and the Latin and various other influences over the years have influenced. There's Germanic and Italian and Asian languages, and lots of different words that have been added to the English language as the language expanded across the globe. And then we also have the additional complication of the modern digital age, where people are doing WhatsApps and using different platforms. And so that has this effect of shortening words and shortening language, the words and the sounds, and it just makes it much more difficult for us to remediate what we know as conventional spelling. So conventional spelling is the spelling, the words that you find in the current dictionaries, and those are like cast in stone. That is the way that the word should be spelt. And that is what we are trying to teach children to do, to spell conventional dictionary spelling words when we are doing remediation. So reading is that process of decoding the text, putting the text taking the text from the graphemes and the letters on the page and making meaning of it, turning it back into oral language. And spelling and writing is the ability to take the oral language sounds that we hear and to encode them into graphemes on the page. So reading and spelling are thus intimately connected, and we know from a lot of research that if a person's reading improves, their spelling improves as well. So the goal of remediation is not a temporary memorization of words, but we want long-term skills so that the child can correctly express their thoughts and their writing for their lifetime. They can write and make themselves known what the things are that they want to write. And to remember that we can all learn to spell better. There are many, many complicated words in English, And so it is something that we keep working on all the time. Even with the spell checkers and the automatic predictive things that are now on all our digital platforms, they sometimes get it wrong, and they misspell the words that might sound the same or might be slightly the same. And so you do need to have a very good memory for what the actual words are like. There is a hierarchical structure of the letters and sounds on the page, which come together to make words and syllables. And then those words make up sentences. We combine sentences together to make paragraphs. We combine paragraphs to make chapters and pages, and then we get a whole text. The study of the actual letters, putting letters from sounds onto text, onto graphemes, that has got to do with phonics and phonology, the awareness of the sounds in the language. When we're looking at words and the meanings behind words, that is the study of semantics. That is the different meanings and nuances that words have. When we combine words to make sentences, the words must be in specific orders, and that has got to do with grammar, where the nouns and the verbs and the adverbs go. And that is the study of syntax, S-Y-N-T-A-X, syntax. And then you make up paragraphs and text depending on who the audience is, what you're writing for, whether you're writing a little story or you're writing a newspaper article or you're writing something, a recipe or whatever. The tone, the nuances that one uses are dependent on the purpose for the writing. And that is the study of pragmatics. So all of these structures build on each other, and we teach from the lowest level of phonics and sounds to the highest level of putting stories and writing texts for specific purposes. And each of these studies is a whole field of study all on its own, with a lot of different rules as well. So in order to spell correctly, one needs to have your visual perception and your auditory perception intact, and you need to have very good memory. So we were looking for visual and auditory memory, what the words sound like, what the words look like. And in order to do that, the foundational skill of oral language needs to be in place. So we need to have a very good understanding of the language and how it's used and all the words in the language. We've already dealt with a lot of the auditory and visual perceptual skills that are required. And so I want to go on to a little bit more of the detail. So if we're looking at the actual human speech, how speech is made, that is the study of phonetics. And phonetics is very complicated. We look at all the organs of speech and the study of phonation, how the air comes out of your lungs through the larynx or the vocal cords, which vibrate in a specific way to make the sounds, and then how we shape our mouth, our tongue, the whole cavity of the mouth in order to articulate and make the particular sounds that that particular language has. And so each language has its own particular set of phonemes that are specific for that particular language. When we look at English, English has 44 phonemes. So there are 44 particular sounds that you need to be able to make in the English language, and we only have 26 graphemes that we can map those sounds onto. So phonology is the study of the distribution and patterning of these speech sounds in a language. So how the sound is actually which sounds we produce at which times in the language, and there are rules governing this pronunciation. The rules govern where you put the emphasis and how you vocalize the vowels and the consonants and where they are patterned. So a phoneme, when I speak about phonemes, I'm talking about the actual sounds of the language, the smallest sound like a s or a ch or a d, a p, k, qu, a n, ng. All those are the sounds of the language. And one's ability to be aware of where the sounds of what the sounds of your language are, how to manipulate them, how to distinguish between different sounds, and how to replace sounds in words. That is all got to do with phonemic awareness. And we know from research that phonemic awareness, your awareness of the sounds of the language, your ability to hear those sounds, is a crucial component of writing and of reading well. So you need to be able to hear the differences between all these sounds, like the difference between a p and a b, which are very similar. One is voiced and one is unvoiced, and a t and a d, made with the same organs of speech, but one has voice and one just has, it's called unvoiced, so it's very soft. And these phonemic awareness skills come into play when we are teaching spelling. And so orthography is this art of representing or writing down the sounds of a language in the proper order, using the proper letters of the alphabet in order to get what is called correct or conventional spelling. So conventional spelling is the spelling that people have decided in a dictionary how these things, what the order is that the symbols must be written down in order to represent particular words in that particular language. So a grapheme is the actual symbol that is written on the page. So the individual letters, and graphemes may be individuals like an S, an M, or an A, or they might be sequences like a TH combined together makes a th, and a SH combined makes a sh, and a CH makes a ch. So those graphemes represent a phoneme, and we want to be able to get phonemes and graphemes in the correct order when we are hearing the language, the oral language, but also writing it. Now, when you do remediation with children, it's a useful thing to have a look at the writing that a child has done. So ask them to write a little paragraph or a little story about something, and then have a look at where the words are that they are making errors. The errors that are made in a child's writing are the crucial indicators for you as the remedial teacher of exactly what remedial strategy you're going to use in order to remediate those particular difficulties. And a useful thing for you to do is to analyze the type of word that the spelling errors are being made in. And we can divide English words into 3 different types of words. regular words, predictable words, and irregular words. And other languages that have um, a one-to-one correspondence with the sound and the grapheme will probably only be regular or predictable words. So a lot of languages do not have these irregular words. So regular words are words where there is exact correspondence between the grapheme and the phoneme. So the sound you make is the letter that you're going to write. So if we look at these examples like pig, nap, set, see, they have, you can clearly hear the sounds if you have your auditory awareness intact, p, I, g, and we write down the P and the I and the G. So if children are having difficulty with these regular words where there is clear correspondence between phoneme and grapheme, there are strategies that we can teach, and we can do a lot of phonics. Teachers are very good at doing phonics exercises and having all sorts of like letterland little stories and ideas in order to really set the sound and the grapheme together so that they become automatically associated with each other. Then there's a strategy called SOS, simultaneous oral spelling, which I'm going to explain to you in a minute. And we can use a lot of application of these words in sentences so that it becomes more automatic. So a lot of practicing of writing the words in different sentences assists with the phoneme grapheme correspondence. The second type of word is predictable words. Predictable words contain orthographic patterns. So the pattern, the generalization in this word is something that we can learn because there isn't a very strict phoneme grapheme correspondence in these words. They are spelt by applying certain rules of letter sound correspondence together, and we can start predicting what they're going to be and learn some of the rules. So teaching of actual spelling rules is a very useful thing to do in your remedial sessions. And I have put up a summary of the rules in spelling, English spelling rules in this unit. So if we look at some of these words, receive, one never knows whether it's an R-E-C-I-E or an E-I. That's a confusion. But there is a rule that's got to do with E before, if it's a C, then it's an E-I. And if you know those rules, then you can apply them to these words, as in may and day. So the rule here is if the word is ending in a long vowel, we're using a Y, may, day. And when to use double vowels like an E, sweet, it's a long vowel, so it needs to have a double E. And O, soap, that becomes, it's also a long vowel, so it's an S-O-A-P. And ball, it's also a long vowel in the middle of the word ball, so it gets a double L on the end. We can teach a lot of rhyming words, and rhyming has got to do with words that have similar endings, and a lot of little stories and rhymes are useful to teach in those contexts, and to teach word families, words that are very similar in either the middle or the beginning or the ending sounds, and we combine them together, and I'll talk to you about that in a minute. So the third type of word is irregular words, and irregular words are the ones that cause most of the trouble in English, and it's useful for you to be able to spot where are the irregular words. These are not conforming to that sound letter orthography one-to-one correspondence. But we can look at the word and we can start to get some clues from the word that help us to figure out the spelling. So if I say the word through or throughout or thou, laughing, might, knife, right, there are lots of words that the sound of the word is not corresponding directly with what is on the page. If we take the word knife, it starts with a K on the page, and the K is silent. So we need to then have different strategies that we are teaching. And those strategies generally rely on a combination of auditory, visual, and motor skills simultaneously in order to really learn how to spell those words. And we have to overtly, actively teach the spelling of those words. And we can also do metacognitive strategies. Meta means over and above. So it's your awareness of your own ability to spell. And we can teach children to become more aware of whether the word is spelled correctly or not. And then we do a lot of dictionary, using of a dictionary when we're trying to teach these particular words over here. So this table and all the explanations are in your unit notes. There's a PDF of notes that Dr. Liz and I have put together, and please go and have a look and download that from the unit content that gives much more explanation of these different types of words. So if we look at phonic methods, we're going to use these mostly for the regular words because we having to have this clear correspondence between what we hear and what we write down. So we do a lot of rhyming word endings that are the same, such as at, 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 that. So doing a repetition of the rhymes, alliterations, being able to identify words that begin with the same letters or sounds, brown, bring, bry, bright. Doing lots of blending, joining sounds or syllables together to make words, so blending things together. We will give the sounds d, o, g, and the child must put those sounds together to make dog. B, na, na, put the sounds together to make banana. So doing a lot of these exercises raises phonological awareness of the sounds in each of the words. Segmenting, where we break up a word into sounds, we say, what sounds can you hear in the word bird? And the child should be able to say b, d. And so doing a lot of these manipulations as well. When you're manipulating sounds, you're deleting, adding, or substituting different sounds. So if we say something like, I'm going to give you a word, the word is spray, take the s out of the word spray, what word do we get, what word are we left with? And they must be able to say pray. So deleting or adding or substituting. So manipulation of words and of sounds is really useful in order to improve phonological awareness. Then there are lots of different systems of spelling that have arisen. and people have written about those in a lot of remedial books. One of them is called simultaneous oral spelling, SOS. It's part of a much more complicated system called the Gillingham reading system, and it's got to do a lot with auditory awareness and being able to also visually see. So in this particular pattern of strategy, remedial strategy, you ask the child to read or say the word aloud. So the word must be said aloud. Then you syllabify the word. You find what the syllables are, and to do that, you ask them to clap the syllables, to stamp them, to jump them with their feet, and they can also hold their hand under the chin and say ba, na, na, to find out how many times your chin moves down to give the syllables. So you're trying to make all sorts of ways of learning how the word is broken up. What are the parts of the word? Then the teacher breaks the syllables down into letters and says each of the letters individually for the child, and the child then has to repeat those letters orally, and only once they've done all this oral spelling, then you will move on later to the written. So we're talking about spelling the word orally in sounds, and then you want them eventually to be able to spell the word out aloud orally on their own. That's why this is an oral method. So when you see SOS, we're talking about an oral spelling ability, and that's why it works well for regular sounds that have one-to-one correspondence. Then you can also teach word families. These are very useful for the predictable words. And here you've got words that all have a very similar pattern, sound pattern somewhere. And for instance, this example here, the sound pattern is ain, A-I-N, which is a common pattern that's found at the end of a lot of words. And you put together a whole family of words that all end in ain, such as brain, chain, grain, gain, lane, main, strain, Spain, rain, and so on. And those word families then get taught together. So what we're doing is reinforcing that particular pattern and its corresponding phonemic sounds. You can also teach word families by taking a base word and elaborating on that word, so that each so that a base word, one can figure out what are all the other words that go around that particular word. So in this example, the word is sweet. So we can have sweets, sweetly, unsweetened, sweetened, sweetness, sweeter. And so the word family in this case here is a base word that is elaborated on with all its different prefixes and suffixes. And that is also a useful word family strategy to use for predictable words. So when we've got these irregular words that are spelt with spellings that you can't predict easily what the spelling might be, and these words you really have to just learn the word through, knife, right. They are not spelt with clear the clear correspondence there. And therefore, a combination of auditory, visual, and motor sensory inputs on a regular basis, overtly taught, is useful for these irregular words. So one usually starts with the auditory awareness, saying the word slowly, pronouncing it clearly, hearing the word. So if we look at the word knife, we can hear a n, I. So we've got three clear sounds there. We can then do the clapping, jumping, stamping, finding the syllables in a word. Clearly, knife is one syllable, knife. And then you say each of the letters, but we also have to, because these words are irregular now, you also have to have a very clear flashcard. The word must be written down very boldly and very clearly in clear writing in a very clear font, printed out, all written, so that the visual image of that word is very clear. So we want the visualization, the visual memory to be well established. And the word knife starts with a K, so it must be very clear that that K is in the front. There are also all sorts of strategies to elaborate on this method using different colors. So you could color parts of the word in different, red, or have a red and a black, or red and green, depending on the visual, what the child can see clearly and is clearly contrasting. There are also different kinds of programs. You can find all sorts of printable flashcards from the internet and so on to help you with this. But the point is that the child is looking at and very carefully seeing where the irregularities are in these particular words, because the word does not have this one-to-one correspondence. And so once they've looked at it clearly, said it, pointing to each of the parts in the word, and shown it, that they've engaged with those flashcards, then the card gets turned over or put away so they can't see it. Then they need to say the word, say the sound, and write it down. And we know that the action of writing numerous times, there is research that shows that when your hands are writing a word, physically writing it with a pen or a pencil, that those neural pathways are being established in the brain in order for those words to be very clearly imprinted. You could also, another variation on this is to ask children to use a little whiteboard or a little mini chalkboard. And so they write on this little whiteboard or this little chalkboard and show you the word that they've written, and then they can easily just erase it, and you can practice a lot of words that way. And then once you've done that, then you can ask them to visualize mentally in their heads that chalkboard or the whiteboard, and visualize them writing that word. Imagine this word in your head. You're writing it down on this board in your head in order to really enforce the fact that the word must be, the visual memory of the word must be clearly in the child's head. Then a final thing that we would teach is metacognitive strategies. So meta's got to do with your ability to know how well you spell, how well you do something. You are self-questioning, you're self-monitoring how your awareness. And in order to do this, we teach children various strategies, such as, do I know this word? How many syllables do I hear in this word? What sounds do I hear? Let me hear the word in my head. Let me repeat the word in my head. Which parts of the word am I unsure about spelling? which words am I unsure about? If you're writing a little story, get them to take a different color pen and reread the story that they've written, and then underline the words that they think they've spelt incorrectly. So we are always trying to teach children these skills of self-monitoring. Which words do I think I've spelled incorrectly that I'm going to go and ask someone how to spell them, or I'm going to look up that word in a dictionary. And then to finish sessions by by giving self-affirmations. What have I done well? What have I achieved? Have I worked at this diligently? I concentrated, I made a good story, and I've tried very hard to spell these words correctly. And you are also working on the emotional difficulties at the same time, because we know that children who have um, difficulties with learning problems, all of these often have serious emotional self-esteem difficulties. Okay, so I want to finish off by just doing a little bit of basic understanding of the sounds in a language, so that you, when you are teaching and remediating spelling, you have a bit of an idea of what's happening with sounds. To just reinforce with everybody, I hope you know all these things. So vowel sounds are open, unobstructed sounds, and they are in the middle of words usually. All words need to have a vowel sound. We've got long vowels and short vowels. The short vowels are a, e, I, o, a, and the long vowels are a, e, I, o, u. Some words use the letter Y, as in sky and fly and buy. And we have at least 14 vowel sounds in the English language, and they're made with various combinations of your tongue, mouth, and sounds. English has this neutral vowel called the schwa, which is a sound that makes sounding out words, and that makes English language words very difficult to spell. So if you hear a word such as alone, sofa, system, easily, gallop, the gallop, circus, circus, you're listening for the sound. The schwa, the neutral sound, is made, it's a central sound. None of the organs of your speech organs are manipulating the sound. And so we use this neutral sound a lot in English. Alone. And you need to be aware that you're hearing a neutral sound, but you need to write it down, because our conventional grapheme, we write the sound with an actual letter of the alphabet. So we don't use the phonetic symbol, which is an upside down E, an upside down E sound. We use the phoneme. We use one of the graphemes, a, e, I, o, or a. And so this adds a complication to the remediation of spelling. So please go and do some listening and hearing, and become very much more aware of the neutral sound in the English language. Okay, so I'm going to stop there, because I really wanted to go through the different regular, predictable, and irregular sounds with you. And the vowels are the place that tend to cause the most complications in spelling. And that's because of the limited number of symbols that we have in order to represent the vowel sounds. Consonants are not usually such complicated sounds to remediate. Okay, I will ensure that the recording and the PowerPoints are up in your Moodle unit. And please go and have a look at the question which has been set for this particular unit. The question is around what I've discussed today. It's around the 3 different types of words and the strategies that one can use in order to determine the errors the child is making, and then use appropriate strategies in order to remediate those particular errors. Okay, and then please stay in touch with Nola, the tutor, if you have any particular difficulties regarding that particular assignment question, and everything is up on your Moodle for you. Okay, so let me go and have a look for questions in the chat. And then I see our time is running out, but you do have all the information that is there. What happened to the chat? It is. Okay, so I see there's a question that says, do we apply more or less the same rules for Afrikaans spelling? Yes, you can do the same rules in any other language, Afrikaans or any of the indigenous languages. But just be aware that if you have a look at a lot of languages, some of them have much better one-to-one correspondence of grapheme, phoneme than English does. Okay. Right, so I'm going to start handing over to the next lecturer, who is Mr. Dion, and I see he's putting his slides up. I'm going to turn my camera off.
Good morning,
and
Dr.
Good
Fourie.
morning. Good morning, Dion. I hope you're keeping well this morning. I just want to see if any more questions in the chat for my students.
No problem.
Doctor Fourie.
Yes.
Good morning.
Morning.
Hello, Doc.
Good morning.
Yes, it's me, Sandile. I just wanted to emphasize more special on the visual memory, because for us who are visual impaired, we use computers to write whatever information that we're writing. So we do have a spell check, but if you're not familiar with that particular word that you are writing, the spelling check, it might mislead you. So you are correct when you are saying that we need to double check that indeed the word that we are writing is correct, rather than like focusing on the spelling check. More especially the way, if you are using maybe the British English or maybe US English, like the way they organize at the end ZE and at the end is SE, or maybe the way the color COLOUR, and some other times it's CLOLOR without a U. So it's important when you said we must focus on we must have an idea of the visual perception or visual memory, and even the audio memory when it comes to those words.
Thank you very much, Sandile, and thank you for reminding me that some learners do have visual impairments, and we do know that you are blind, so it's going to be hard for you, obviously, to work through a lot of the strategies that I have chosen here. But I know that you're working with, in your remedial practice, you're working with somebody who is able to assist you with these act as your teaching assistant. So you have this added complication of your inability to be able to actually see what children are writing. So and I know that you're working around that very effectively. So thank you very much for adding to another layer of complexity to this already complex task. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Doctor. With that regard, yes, I'm having someone who's assisting me, but I have a diploma in language practice. So all information that you taught us today, I'm familiar with it. I do know it, how to structure it, especially when you have to break words into syllables. Like we have to focus with morphology, which is the study composition of words. So in order to break a word, like the word banana, you'd have to know that, okay, how many syllables is there in the banana? Maybe it's BA, then dash, NA dash, then NA. So stuff like that. So like even phonetic one, the study of speech sound, you know that, okay, all the sound, like for example, the word mom, like when your upper lip and lower lip come together to form that sound, that mom. When we call it like a bilabial sound when you pronounce like with the word mom. So there are some certain sound that come from your lungs, like which is like glottal.
Yeah. Thank you so much. So you know a lot of the detail of the articulation of the sounds, and you're also aware of how to manipulate the sounds and how they are spelt as well. So thank you for adding that complexity to our discussion.
Correctly. Thanks, Doc.
Okay. Thank you, Sandile, and good luck with doing this assignment. Okay, we're gonna hand over now to Mr. Dion, and he's talking about maths and how to assess maths. And I see your slides are up. I'm going to turn my microphone off. Thank you very much, everybody.
Good morning, everybody. I hope that you are well. Today we will be looking at assessment of mathematics. But before we start, I just want you to navigate towards your chat box and just